That's funny. All right, I'm going to do this for a moment.
Hey.
Good evening and welcome to Thrive Thursday. Glad to have everybody here with me. I am filling in for somebody that could not do tonight's talk, so it's an extra one from me. And tonight I'm going to discuss expectations and the different dynamics of expectations. So with that said, I'm going to ask if Reverend Sue Ellen would open our evening in prayer.
Okay. So let's take a breath. I take a breath because when I take a breath, that helps center me in who I am. With that breath, I recognize that there is only God. There is one power that created the universe that is everywhere present. That power is God. It's in and through and as everything that exists. And right here and right now, it is in, through, and as me. And with that power that God moving through me always, I speak my word for this particular Thrive session, knowing that it is divinely guided and divinely led, that Kevin is listening and in tune with what is encouraging him to speak and what that is encouraging him to say. And I know that as he's in tune, we hear what it is that we need to hear. Each of us. It may not be the words he said, but we know in our heart it's what we need to hear. And so it's all in divine appointment. And I give thanks for this absolutely awesome Thrive, knowing that it is perfect in every way. And so I release these words into the law that says yes, knowing it is done and complete. And we affirm it together by saying, and so it is.
And so it is. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That was wonderful. Perfect. And exactly what needed to be said and called forth. So, my thought today resonates probably for many people, especially if you are getting to the age where you're contemplating or thinking about retiring or changing life. But before I go into any of those concepts around expectations, I want to approach the idea that every single day, we all wake up and we get to create our day with what we expect to happen. So many people forget and fail to do this, or they fail to realize that they're creating all the time. Your thoughts, your ideas, your actions are always creative. So a little story came to mind, and this is on the health realm of expectations and creation. My father used to say at the beginning of every winter that he gets sick every year, twice a year, every year. And you know what? Every winter time he would get sick twice a year. Whether he got his flu shot or not, he would always get sick twice a year. And it was just like clockwork with him. And at the same time, and as I got older and developed my intuition and started studying the science of mind principles, I started to point those out to my mother and father both. And Dad got it to some degree, but my mom 100% latched onto it. And she would actually identify and see the things that he would do, not just with the claiming his 2 times a year sickness, but things that she would also do. And started to shift in her expectations, if you will, and stopped claiming things that she really didn't want to happen. And if people that are in their late 70s, my dad was before he passed away, and my mother lived to be 93, if they can learn how to change their expectations in life at that age, I feel anybody could. There is no such thing as being too old to learn new tricks, if you will. So the idea of expectations also fall into categories of weather. Right now, people around me in southern Delaware are freaking out about a storm that's due to hit us tomorrow. And our area of the state was scheduled for an inch to a 2-inch drop of snow over about a 12-hour period of time. Which, of course, the last time this happened last week, it ended up being about a half an inch on the grass, and the next morning it was gone. So we have friends who are already expecting to close the store where we have a space in a vending shop. And she's already freaking out and deciding she's going to close the store on Friday. And I'm like, Maggie, there's not going to happen. It's not going to be that bad. So again, expectations can create a preventative sometimes, or it can actually prevent or create the exact thing to happen that you're trying to prevent. An ounce of prevention, I think the old saying is, and I can't remember the whole saying, perhaps Lynn or Sivan can remember that. An ounce of prevention or an ounce of caution is prevention or something like that. At any rate, unimportant really to the bigger scheme of things. What we expect, we will create. Lynn?
An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Thank you. I knew it was in there somewhere. I just couldn't call it off the top of my head. So we all know that if we expect something bad to happen and we start worrying over it, and worry is a completely useless concept, if you will. It has absolutely no redeeming value whatsoever, other than to create the energy around whatever it is we're worrying about to actually manifest and become real. So if we expect something to happen, we can make it happen, good or bad. It's not that it has to happen. My dad and his sicknesses every year didn't have to happen, but he knew they were going to, and he created that energy around his body, so his body responded. In other parts of our lives, we can expect to be broke at the end of each month. We can expect to not have our bills paid. We can expect for a relationship to not work out and fail before it's even had a chance to start. We can expect any number of negative things on our daily life and our daily basis. One thing, for instance, which I had mentioned earlier, was the concept and idea of retiring. When you pick up the idea of retiring and retirement, it's not necessarily going to be all this, oh, I don't have to work, I get to lounge around all day and do nothing and hang out and, lollygag my days away. I, for one, have retired 3 times in my life now, and I finally figured it out after the 3rd time of how to do it right, and that is by staying busy and having an endless slew of projects on my plate to turn to and look to and keep me occupied, so I always have something I can work on. The art of being creative sometimes is the art of learning how to create things you can procrastinate on, so you always have more to do. I'm really good at that. That's another story. So a friend of ours, Dr. John Waterhouse, has retired from his pulpit in North Carolina, Asheville, where he and his wife, Barbara, who passed away about a year and a half, 2 years ago, had built their Center for Spiritual Living in Asheville from the ground up, literally. They started in a double-wide mobile home. And they built a home there on the property, and they built a building for the sanctuary, and then they built another identical building next to it for the Montessori building and the school and all that. After Barbara passed, John retired and decided to move to Fort Lauderdale to be in the sun and the warmth. And now today I found out that he thankfully has decided to take over the Fort Lauderdale ministry and become full-time minister again, which I applaud him for doing that, because he learned quickly that living in a condo was no maintenance, and life is very short, but at the same time, the days are very long when you're retired and you have nothing to focus your attention on, especially when your life partner has moved on ahead of you and not with you for your retirement years. So I applaud John for finding that within himself quickly. And that story leads me to the idea that when you make a choice in life, whether it's to work, not work, retire, not retire, keeping active is the key element. Expecting something to develop out of nothing, such as to be entertained day in and day out when you have no idea of what you're going to do in your off time, or how you're going to make a living when you don't want to work anymore if you're earlier than retiring age, or any number of expectations, again, there's that word, that we can come up with, can either lead us to evolving or take us down a rabbit hole into a very dark place. And the expectations that can take us into a very dark place are not always easily identifiable. If they don't work, if there's something going on in your life that's not working and it doesn't bring you joy, you're probably treading on the edge of that rabbit hole. And sometimes there's things in our lives that we don't necessarily have an out for right away that show up because of commitments that we've made. And we have to live through those commitments because sometimes they just are not avoidable. And yet at the same time, we can keep an eye on the proverbial prize or the expectation of what's to come, which can stave us up and make us strong so that we can rise to the occasion to continue to do what we committed to do, whatever that may be, to fulfill what we have to fulfill, to be true to our own nature of being good and true to our own word when we give our word for somebody or to somebody for something and we want to live up to it, or we've made a commitment in some way or another, we need to fulfill that. And that type of an expectation helps us to grow. It makes us stronger. But at the same time, it can be very depleting of our personal energy when we are working through the process of living up to what we've taken on as our commitment. Sometimes our commitments are internal, that we decide we're going to do something and we put it out there into the world and we don't want to backtrack. Sometimes they involve other people being involved in the level of commitment that we made, that we commit to assist or help others. And we have to carry through and we have to follow through with that. In this day and age, especially, I think it is important that we watch, that we do follow through with the commitments that are important, not only to ourselves, to be true to our own nature and our own God qualities within, but also that we resonate that out into the world so that we are protecting the vulnerable, if you will, or the ones that don't have the strength or the necessarily have the knowledge of the tools that they have at their disposal within, because that not everybody is raised in the same way that unfortunately we are in America. Some cultures are very self-deprecating and squashing. Some governments are that way. That's a whole nother topic, of course. But we, the individuals that know, and there are many of us in the world as a whole, are the ones that are the centurions. And we are the ones that get to lead the expectations for the rest of the world by our own thoughts and our own actions and the things that we do to set the example for others to follow. So, in short, and with the expectation that all of this has somehow filtered through to create some sort of a resonance of what I'm trying to express in my thoughts today, expectations can be good. Expectations of ourselves can be modified. Expectations for others to do something, those don't carry a lot of weight because we really don't have the ability to rest our expectations on what others may or may not do. So always be guided by your inner voice. Know what is right and wrong that resonates within yourself. And when you have the option of being kind and expecting others to be kind in return, hopefully, take that expectation and run with it. So that's about the gist of my conversation and of all of this, my thoughts as they were. I have heard Ernest Holmes speaking in different mediums, not ever in person, because of course he had passed away before I was in the Science of Mind and New Thought. But I think I'm pretty much saying the same types of things that he would have been talking about if he were alive and talking in this day and age and the time we're living in now. But I do believe that we have the power to create, and we should never forget that. So now, anybody have thoughts or comments or dialogue to share?
I think expectations are funny things in that we have expectations all the time about all kinds of things. And you said that early on in this. We have an expectation that the sun is going to come up tomorrow. The clouds may cover it. And if, depending on where we're living, we might have expectations of those clouds being there or not, or dropping 4 inches of snow or not, depending on where we're living and whether we listen to the weatherman or not. It's an interesting thing with the expectations that are there. And I sometimes find myself with an expectation that I don't realize how I got it, where it came from. But all of a sudden, I'm expecting something that's not necessarily to my best interest, or it perhaps may be totally neutral. But I'm surprised that I'm expecting it to work out this way or that way. It seems to me to be more difficult to be completely neutral than to have expectations one way or the other. Now, I find myself, if I'm catching myself in the negative side, that I can flip myself to the positive side pretty easily if I catch it and go, no, that's not the truth. The truth is this, that I'm whole, perfect, and complete. I don't get colds twice a year anymore. Or if I come down with something, it doesn't last 2 weeks than it used to, like it used to. And if you get a cold, it's going to last 2 weeks, stemmed from a pediatrician that told me when I had my first child and I came down with a cold when he was 2 weeks old. Well, congratulations, you have a cold. It'll last about 2 weeks. And I bought it hook, line, and sinker. Every cold I ever got lasted about 2 weeks after that. Until I met Mike, and he's going, why? Doesn't have to. So then I cut them down to about 2 days. That's better. So it's better if I can catch myself in the place where I'm going, ooh, you think you might be having a cold? Let's go hedge that off. kind of thing ahead of time, rather than actually succumbing and suffering for the 2 days or 2 weeks anymore.
So to offer dialogue in return, you mentioned being neutral. Can you say or add to the ideas of being neutral and how that operates for you? And is it always wise to be or try to be neutral in situations?
I think the advantage to being neutral is that when you shift off of whatever's got you on a high, because the life is made of ups and downs, and when you're up here, that's great, and then you come down a little bit. So if you're accepting that neutral is okay and actually good, then you don't have to swing into the lows to go to then experience that. Kind of sounds funky, but nothing lasts forever. And that I can tell, except God, nothing on this plane lasts forever. Even the cold that seemed like 2 weeks was forever didn't last.
True.
So if I can move myself out of negative and into neutral, then I can be open to whatever I can go positive-ish with. And creating my day, creating my reality, starting with whatever I'm going to do that day, looks and feels better if I'm in a neutral or positive space. Because if I get up and I say, oh my gosh, it's going to be a bad day today, it's going to be bad, lousy weather, and I'm not going to feel good, I can make that happen in a matter of a heartbeat, and I don't want to. So for me, if I find myself in that place, I want to roll over, pull the covers up over my head, and say, okay, God, we need a redo here.
15 more minutes of sleep.
Sleep that icky stuff off, roll over, throw back the covers, and get out of bed in a good mood.
So it sounds to me like you're saying neutral or better.
Neutral or better, yes.
Okay.
And there's nothing wrong with neutral. That's what I'm saying. I think that there's nothing wrong with neutral. We can put out there what we want in a positive way. And that is a positive thing, but neutral is good too.
Thank you. Thank you for the dialogue. Lynn, did you have anything that you wanted to share?
Yes. I am retired and work-wise, on my paperwork it says retired, but except for here with Inner Journey. And I just find that my day is busier than when I was working, or as busy than when I was working full time. And so it's hard to find that place where it's boring or I've got nothing to do for the moment. And I have to make spaces at the moment to try to do some little craft things that I got as Christmas presents that I enjoy, and I'll let something go. But it always seems like there's something else going on in my life. And of course, right now I've got my brother living with me, and then other things to do with Inner Journey or Toastmasters or some other things, and then cleaning. And then now that the house is, got it all to my, Bob's not here now. It's like, oh, what else with the house or the yard? So it's like, there's no what's called retirement lag time at all. and it's not at all what I expected. So my expectations of that are totally just out the window. So we have to create what we want for this time, create it all together. So I'm kind of working on that. But, you said the expectations of the day. I've had little affirmations, that I would do in the, when you wake up in the morning, and we create those and see different things, read different things about making those statements. And I start every day when I wake up, the first thing I do is say the day of the week and the date. Today's Wednesday or today's Thursday, January 18. It's almost like it kind of resets me back into my body and into the, where I am in the moment, kind of grounds me a little bit. But Joe Dispenza, I don't know if you've ever seen this thing, From What the Bleep Do We Know? Joe Dispenza did how do you create your expectation from the day. You're nodding. I love this thing. And I use it for, I pass it around a lot. I was going to pull it up on my computer. But I love how he sets this exact expectation that God, or in the quantum physics language, the observer is there, present. And so show me something today that's going to surprise me, and to create that expectation that something that enjoyable is going to happen. And I always thought that was fascinating. It's fabulous.
Indeed.
At the ministers' conference, when it was at Encinitas, at Seaside, God, I don't know what year that would have been, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, 7 years ago. They taught a class on unconditional love and forgiveness, and and it has to do with having an overemphasis on expectations or unfulfilled expectations that eventually will cause illness. So I thought that was interesting to learn about that, because I think I think we all, like Suellen said, we all have expectations about things, and positive and negative health things, are like your friend talking about closing the shop, and if we're not mindful, are the negative expectations greater than your positive expectations? And then that acts like any other negative force or thought, which creates a chemical reaction and then can cause illness. So I thought that was interesting to learn that as well. So where is that? I've picked certain things that go on that I try not. Now, let's see now. Is that one? Traffic is one. Traffic is always such a great teacher, isn't it? Different things, how people drive around you and how you drive, and how you expect people to be. And I guess I try to teach myself not to expect too much from other people. If I want to give something, I don't want to have an expectation that it's for a reason, or to expect something back, because so often people don't return a favor the way you might give one. Right. So I have to just love that in the moment. Or traffic people, let somebody in, and if you let somebody in, or give them the way, and they don't thank you, or wave to thank you. Bob used to get so angry about that. He was like, okay, I'm not letting the next person in, and he'd like, ah. And then I would just like, oh, okay, all right, there you go. Hope you have a good day, the rest of your day. And I have to, like, it's almost like a treatment every time somebody does something like that. So I don't, I keep myself verbally on that path of just in that positive flow about things. And then there is that other part of my life that I just feel like I don't have control over, and my expectations are way off the map about different things. So, it's like every moment you're just like in this awareness, mindful awareness of where am I letting my thoughts and desires and expectations go. So it's an interesting topic. And I saw John's post this morning that he had decided to take this full-time job, and I thought that was very interesting.
I was telling Suellen I was very happy for him, and I think it's the best thing for him all the way around, because I can just imagine.
Yeah.
So, at any rate, back to what you were saying, I just have one question. It's just something that you said, so I'm just kind of soundboarding, if I may. Do you expect every day to be overfilled with things that you need to do, that you're not going to have any time to do what you want to do? Is that an expectation that you allow to take over or take charge, and you aren't
Currently,
able to carve out enough time to do a little project for an hour for yourself, or say no to something and limit something somewhere else so that you actually have the time to do that little project that you may want to be working on? Is it an expectation
no,
that you're not going to have
well,
time in the day to do it?
there's two categories.
There's no right or wrong answer. I'm just pointing that out because I heard you say it, and I'm like, I wonder if she just heard herself say that with all of the things on your plate.
Am I listening in there?
I do it. I get it. I do it.
I got some really fun craft things for Christmas because my daughter-in-law is doing crafts all the time with the kids. So I have actually been setting time in the morning, in the early mornings when I'm by myself, to do those, and it's been really enjoyable. The other category of my life is being a caregiver again, or it's been continuous from one person to the next. And so, I'm getting a little sour.
That's one of those commitment things I was referring to that we get ourselves into and we have to honor through. So I get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get it.
And I realize right now I can leave for up to 3 hours. And if I'm home in 3 hours, I feel okay. If I stretch it to 4, I'm hoping everything's okay when I get home. And I know that or my expectation is that as things progress, that will get shorter and shorter. And so that's kind of a known kind of thing. So that's a part of my mental health I'm learning about and working with. Yeah.
I've learned with the caregiving of the in-laws that I'm currently involved with, which is 100% on me because I stepped into the role on my own. But I'm realizing now that my expectations of what's to come can shift and have shifted somewhat, because now I'm actually looking into the possibilities and the very probable situations that in the not too distant future, I'm going to have other people coming in to help with hospice care type situations where they will come in and they will assist also. So it's not about just Brian and I taking care of his parents all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is the expectation that I had and created with my mom, and I did follow through with that, and I was able to maintain very easily and quite well overall. And this is something that I tried to follow the same expectations, and I just realized I couldn't, and I had to let that expectation shift into something else.
Yes.
And being okay with that, and saying, this is going to change and shift into something different, and I have to be okay with that. And it's nothing about me not living up to my commitments or anything else. I'm still there. And yet at the same time, I have to be able to say my expectations have changed and we're going this direction instead of where I thought we were going this way. Right. And that's okay. That's the allowance of the expectation to change. So
absolutely.
But totally on board. I get it. 100%. And like I said earlier, everyone's life is so completely different, even though we're so much alike and have so many similarities with our creative abilities. We all are just so unique that each situation, no matter how it may resonate, everybody has to find their own path and create their own what's perfect for them in the moment. And so
yeah, right.
Thank you. Anything else? Anyone else? Any other thoughts, Sue Ellen?
Nope, I don't have any other thoughts.
I did have this thought. For anybody that may be watching this on YouTube in the future, you are free to reach out to Inner Journey to speak to Sue Ellen, Lynn, or I, since we are the three that are on this particular Thrive meeting. And if anybody wants to have conversation or dialogue about any of these things that have been mentioned, or frankly, anything else, please feel free to do so. We are pretty easily located through Facebook on Inner Journey. And I believe we do have a website. I'm not sure if there's a connection to us through the YouTube or not. Lynn, is there a way to contact us through YouTube?
They could, yeah, in the comments section below, below the video, they could put a comment in there. Yeah.
Okay, so then you would see that. Okay, I wasn't sure, but I wanted to direct something to the audience that may come after. This
Yeah.
is
If they do a comment on YouTube, of course it is public, until I pick it up, but they do a comment, if they can go to the Facebook page, they can go into Messenger where it's not public. So either one of those would be the way to do that, I guess.
Yep, if you want it to be more private, I would say Facebook, innerjourney.org. Pretty easy to find us. So I would highly recommend and suggest that anybody who have a question or something they want to discuss or need any assistance finding the tools within, please feel free to contact any of us. And I think that's it for the evening. So anything else? Sue Ellen, Lynn?
Your little phone number for,
I got that ready to go. I just didn't want to do it
Okay.
before I asked you guys if there's anything else you thought of or you wanted to suggest. So
sorry.
for Inner Journey to keep going, we always put up that we have our tithing number. And it is 405-337-9739. And I'm reading this upside down and backwards. And my word for tonight's is love.
No.
So that
Excellent.
way they know which meeting you were attending when you do tithe or donate, however you want to look at it. And we do appreciate it. Thank you very much. And I think that's about the conclusion. We are a little bit early. Lynn, Sue Ellen, anything else you'd like to add? Let's do this. How about tonight we open it up, and Lynn, would you like something that you'd like us to hold prayer for you for the next 2 weeks until our next meeting specifically?
We're still videoing.
Yes. Yes.
Something. Yes. Let's see. To know that there is the infant possibilities of high expectations coming to fruition. That's a mouthful.
I like that. Infinite possibilities of expectations. Sue Ellen, any thoughts? Something you'd like to be holding?
Divine unfolding.
Divine unfoldment, yes. The unfoldment. The unfoldment of divine expectations. There we go. We like that. Yeah. And always the divine expectations and the highest and best patience. Patience for everything that's going on around us individually, around us as a nation and as a world.
Yes.
So that sounds quite wonderful. Thank you. So
good suggestion.
Close our eyes, taking a deep breath. And as we breathe in again, we inhale God, knowing that there is only God, God that runs in, through, and as everything. There truly is nothing that is not God. At the very smallest particles, atoms and neurons and all the smallest little details within our bodies and with everything that's in creation, from the stones to the water to the very air that we breathe. there is only God. God is in, as, and through each one of us. And as we breathe that God in and we exhale that same God energy out into the universe, I know that tonight has been right and perfect, perfectly aligned, perfectly heard, perfectly received, and we shall grow in perfect ways and measures. Perfection being what is right for each one of us as a whole. Since we are perfectly imperfect human beings, that's all we can look for. That's all we can expect. We are human beings after all, and we will always be making mistakes. And yet nothing is overcome, nothing that cannot be overcome. As I said, nothing that cannot be overcome. So as I step forward into the rest of my evening and the rest of my week and month and year, I know that each and every one of us in attendance to tonight and in the future is in their right and perfect place, making their right choices, expecting the best for themselves and all of those around them. I know that everyone is choosing kindness, choosing love, and empowering those energies first in our daily lives. But I know as I release my word into the law that says, yes, it is whole, perfect, and complete, done and done right here and right now. And together we affirm this by saying, and so it is.
Thank you.
Thank you
everyone.
very much.
Namaste.
All
Have
right.
a wonderful evening and have a wonderful coming weekend. Stay safe, warm, dry, if that's the case.
Recording off.